For those that don't, or if you just want to take a look at your compensation structure, just make sure that it is still aligned. I wanted to talk a little bit about why a compensation structure is useful. To support those organizational values, or in general. First is administrative ease. Quite simply, with a structure in place, it's just clearer what a salary should be. It's straightforward. You use the compensation philosophy that you have, you apply it to the ranges you have in place, and it's pretty clear how you set pay. The pro of this is that you don't have to go out to market to get market data to set an individual pay by job. So when you hire someone in a new role, you don't have to go out and get a benchmark for just that specific role, which piecemeal can be quite expensive or time consuming, or both. And you can validating those pay decisions actually becomes much more administratively easy and a smooth process. It allows for alignment of employees easily, creates consistency, and allows for further transparency for leadership and financial feasibility, and employees if you'd like to go that far as well. So from an administrative standpoint, I think it's probably clear that it is just easier and a much smoother process to have a structure in place. Financial predictability, we've talked some about this as well. Knowing how much a hire will cost assists in the budget planning and approval process. Unfortunately, value or mission-based organizations have salary challenges. You can't always allow for the base pay that the for-profit world is able to provide to their employees. So to provide the consistency from a financial standpoint, it allows for recruitment and retention for those tensions to show themselves easier. So it becomes a little bit more visible, and then the organization can become more agile in their adjustments. So since we all know you can't compete, let's look at other ways in which we can attract and retain talent. Recruitment and retention will always drive an organization to look at market pressures. It's just having that clear compensation structure for those decisions. It validates and it shows employees and candidates, if you'd like to show them that as well, that the decisions that you do make around compensation are approached thoughtfully, and they aren't just, throwing a dart at a dartboard or just picking a number out of a hat. So these are definitely things that can help your organization from a financial budgetary perspective, and then also retention and recruitment. So let's talk a little bit about flexibility. We are often asked through these processes if a structure has to be rigid. To answer that question is not terribly easy, but I will tell you that we have never seen two organizations with the exact same needs or requirements for a compensation structure. It's one of the reasons that we choose to learn an organization first while we're going in and doing these analysis for them. While it might seem like a structure requires a rigid view on compensation in general, that's not the case. By establishing those ranges that are supported by your compensation philosophy and thereby your organizational values, you're able to dictate the amount of flexibility that you would like to support and be able to implement that across the board and communicate it to your employees. Now, don't get me wrong, if you have a compensation philosophy, you should follow it. I never recommend writing it and then just doing something totally different. However, you can build in the flexibility to set pay based on various factors that are important to your organization. So these can be individual performance, these can be tenure, these can be specific skills and knowledge, level of responsibility, and the list goes on. I don't recommend gender and ethnicity being on that list, just for the record. But by identifying these factors and how they align with the organizational values, you are creating yet another mechanism to support your values through your culture. So this is something that we look at on a daily basis through our compensation studies, making sure that we can build in the flexibility that you need in order to run your organization while providing the analysis needed to back up those decisions. So something that you may just be asking if you don't have a compensation structure is what one might look like. So I thought I would show you probably the most complicated structure that I could find. And I thought this was actually a good visual, and I realize there's a lot of colors and it's a little confusing, but let me explain it really quickly. So you have career levels, and these are things that you can determine within your organization. Maybe it's not these letters, it's not support, professional, technical management, it's whatever makes sense for your organization, but these are levels. And then you have salary grades. These are ranges from X to Y of dollars, and these would represent base salary. The nice thing about looking at it this way is you can actually see how the ranges in terms of dollars will overlap. So it's very easy to see that somebody could progress through a salary grade or range or from one level to the next and still be able to maintain that salary increase, but also it creates that flexibility that we were talking about on the previous slide that allows you to determine these things based on factors for that position or that employee, and giving a nod obviously to the internal equity piece as well. So while this is not necessarily what a structure would look like for you, this is just an example. It shows how individuals can go from an individual contributor to a management track and still be able to provide an increase, or just go up a level. And obviously the nomenclature would change based on your organization, but this just gives you an example of a way that it could be built, just for reference. So after all that talking, I think I'm almost done. I just want to talk a little bit about the key takeaways just from our talks today. First and foremost, compensation philosophies are used as a tool and a guideline to support organizational goals. I think that that has been a theme through this whole thing. Obviously, those organizational goals and values are important to communicate back to your employees. Compensation is not just base salary. Hopefully that's something that you took away from this presentation as well, and potentially have some ideas on how to make sure your employees understand that as well. And then internal equity analysis. They are an important step in a holistic approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and something that we definitely recommend through this process as you're looking at compensation.